Thank you for joining us on another episode of Popcorn for Breakfast. With me, as always, your co-host who's breathing heavily, Kirk.
Hello, hello.
What's going on, man? What's happening?
I'm so excited. We haven't done a live stream in like 4 weeks.
Yeah, you getting a little pregame jitters?
I'm like excited, nervous pee and pumped and horrified. And what if I say the wrong thing?
It's stressful. It's very stressful. When that little light goes on, it's like being on the radio. It's like being on TV. It literally says at the top of the screen, it's showtime. So it's intense, no pressure, but here we are. We're back on the stream, like Kirk said. For those of you joining us on the stream, thank you. Feel free while you're here to drop some comments in the chat. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about today. I feel like if anybody should be breathing heavily, it should be me, because I literally almost missed the stream. I was like, I walked in here like 2 minutes ago and Kirk was already here, and he was like, he was really nice. He didn't say anything to me about it. He didn't text me or anything. I just got lost in PlayStation land. And it was a close call, to be honest. It was close, but I'm here now. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. I just figured like if you were going to miss it, I was going to try to make the show go on,
Yeah, man. That's right. You just got to go for it.
It would not be the same, but I was like, well, life is busy. Whatevs. We'll see what happens.
That's right. The show must go on. The show must go on. But here's what I will say to give myself a little bit of credit to my name. The reason I was lost in PlayStation land is because I was playing Spider-Man. I was playing the Spider-Man game, and I titled this stream, part of the title of this stream is A Very Spidey Christmas, because we have tons of Spider-Man news going on, and all that Spider-Man news really got me just like in the Spidey spirit. So I've been playing my PlayStation, been playing some Spider-Man. They're dropping on, what is it? What is today? Today's the 7th.
Yes.
On the 10th, which is Friday, they are dropping the No Way Home Spider-Man suits on the Spider-Man games to download. So I'll get to play in that cool like black and gold suit, and then also the new suit. So kind of getting hyped up for that. But yeah, so we'll have lots of Spider-Man to talk about. We've got lots of other things to talk about, including, we keep talking about it. Awards season is here. We're going to be reviewing a film that is really, really buzzy. I know I said King Richard was buzzy, but this movie's really buzzy. I posted the other day, goldderby.com. We've talked about them a couple of times. They have this movie currently with the best odds to take home Best Picture at the Oscars, and that film is called The Power of the Dog. Wow. And we'll be reviewing that today. Wow. So it's exciting stuff.
That's some big shoes. Some big shoes right there to take on.
I'm telling you. Well, you know how that goes with the odds, though. It kind of shifts as things go on, because award season, I think people maybe don't realize that there's a lot of campaigning that goes on with it. There's lots of like the production companies send out all these different swag bags, and they have these different events, and they pump up their movie and they campaign. So it definitely is sort of political, which kind of sucks. But, as the political circus kind of goes on, the odds tend to change and stuff like that. But for right now, date of recording, December 7th, goldderby.com has The Power of the Dog ranked as the best odds to take home the big prize come Oscar time.
Wow, that is shocking. But more shocking is that, I would like to get this swag bag. This would be pretty cool.
I would too, yes.
Like, can we get a screener copy ahead of time before it drops on whatever streaming service or hits theaters? And I want a shirt that says The Power of the Dog. I want, what's something?
I want a dog. Send me a dog. Send me a dog, BBC Films, and then we'll talk. Then maybe you get on my Oscar ballot.
Can you imagine if that was what they did? Like,
they sent puppies to everyone. Merry Christmas.
Oh my gosh.
That'd be great.
That would be incredible.
And there's only one dog in this movie. I was very let down. And it's very brief. It's like a little farm dog, little border collie running around.
He has less than 1 minute of screen time.
It's not fair. It's not fair. I mean,
but is it really about that dog, Cam? Is it really?
We'll talk about it.
I don't want to bury the lead here, but
we'll talk about it. We'll talk a lot about it. So if you're listening in podcast form, a reminder, this is the What's Poppin' episode. You'll hear that review this coming Friday, but if you're on the stream, you get it tonight. And if you are listening in podcast form, that gives you 2 whole days to watch The Power of the Dog on Netflix. I know you have a Netflix subscription, so do it. Go watch it. It's only 2 hours long. It's really a quick drink of water there. And then you'll be able to be up to date for the review on Friday. So
What if there's someone out there? Sorry, I am very squirrely today.
No, go.
What if there's someone out there that still only has the DVD subscription of
yes.
Netflix?
Do they still have that?
I think so. I think
Do
so.
they really?
That's for like, the older generation, like our great grandparents.
Is it still
that are alive.
DVDs or is
I
it
would-
Blu-rays?
I think it's VHS. I think they actually opened up a VHS.
They downgraded. They only send VHSs from like the 1980s and 90s. That's all you get.
Yes, and then sometimes if you rewind it too far, you actually get like a copy of like The Godfather on there instead of The Power of the Dog. Like it's a
been
terrible
taped
system.
over. Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, I know we've talked about it before, but the DVD delivery system was lit. I freaking loved it. It was exhilarating and it was fun to like reorder your queue, and it was fun whenever like, so I was living with my parents whenever we had that. It was fun whenever somebody like had a different movie in the queue and you go to the mailbox and you're thinking you're getting one movie and you're like, oh man, Dad, what you got 310 to Yuma? And you're like, all right, I'll watch it. I specifically remember watching 310 to Yuma. I remember watching Rear Window. Or Secret Window. I remember watching There Will Be Blood, a bunch of them through the DVD delivery service. It was a good time. It really was.
I remember Aubrey was getting them at college, but specifically she was getting like Dawson's Creek on DVD. And at the time, this is very recent because Dawson's Creek lost the right to their own theme song. It was
I don't want to wait for
It was
our
the-
lives to be over. Yeah, that one.
that's the one. That's the one. It was the Replacement theme song, which who knows? Whoever can sing that by heart, bravo to you. We'll give you a free shirt if you can just like throw that in one of our
Probably
social
Gavin
media
DeGraw.
comments. And all the time I'd come over, she was watching that. So that's what
Oh,
I think
man.
of with the Netflix DVDs. But really, I do hope that system is still out there. And I think it would be a very millennial, even zillennial, even Gen Z to have a VHS version of
Yeah.
Netflix. I think that would be pretty sweet.
That would be a good time. It would be. If they do have it, I might have to dip my toes in that water just to feel the rush of blood again. I have one other Netflix nugget since we're on the topic. I was this week years old when I learned. Okay, bear with me here. You know how on Netflix you'll be flipping through and each movie has a different thumbnail or show has a different thumbnail image, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes, I don't know, maybe you're not like this, but sometimes the character that's on the thumbnail, you're like, what? That like Woody Harrelson, he's not even the main character of this movie, or it's like something really off the wall. Did you know that is algorithmically driven? That they have multiple different versions of thumbnails for each movie and show in their library, or the majority of them. And then they, based on your viewing habits, will serve you up the one that is likely most desirable to you. Is that wild and somewhat creepy?
It's a little evil.
It is,
It's
right?
a little evil.
Yeah,
But
I mean, they're
do-
totally trying to brainwash you into watching a movie that you normally wouldn't watch under normal circumstances.
Which is good. So I guess if you have a movie and Jared Leto's at the front of it, they're like, whoa, we did something wrong. Who else is in this? Let's see here. Oh, Robert Pattinson's in this movie. Cue
Yeah,
him
and then
up.
you're
Let's
like,
do it.
click, he'll click on this. And the only reason I thought of it was because I was in Disney Plus the other day, and I noticed my son watches Nightmare Before Christmas. He has watched it multiple times, and so it was in my queue. And the thumbnail image changed to a picture of Oogie Boogie. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that Disney Plus did alternate thumbnails. And then I went down this whole rabbit hole and found out that Netflix generates their video thumbnails based on the algorithm, which is mind-blowing to me.
Wow.
Totally mind-blowing. So
Wow.
there you go. The more you know.
That's just why the world is ending, because
It's
a
sinister.
little bit of everything all of the time.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay with them. I'm okay with Netflix doing it. I'm not okay with Facebook experimenting with my psyche, but Netflix, like, this is a symbiotic relationship.
That's true.
You
It's
give
just
me
movies.
something, I give you something. Like, that's fine. It's all good.
Mhm. I like
All
this.
right.
Okay.
Enough of that. Let's get into it. I've teased a ton of Spider-Man stuff, so we should hop into what's popping, because there's a lot of Spider-Man news. And no, it's not just MCU. It's not just No Way Home. It's different stuff. And there is some MCU, but there's also a lot of Sony stuff. So let's dive into it if you're ready, Kirk.
I'm ready. Let's pop
it up.
Pop it up.
All right. First things up. Let's get the Spidey stuff going here. First thing that came out, and this was like, it picked up some traction, but when it was first talked about, everybody was kind of like, they didn't know how to word it in their headlines and things like that. And that's this. Amy Pascal, who is effectively the Kevin Feige of Sony's Marvel situation. She's, the executive producer of their whole Sony Spider-Verse thing. She was talking to Fandango, and she said the following. When asked about this being the end of the Spider-Man trilogy with Tom Holland, she said, "This is not the last movie that we are going to make with Marvel. This is not the last Spider-Man movie. We are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going on to the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies." So, if that's to be believed, what Amy Pascal is saying is that there is another Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy following up the one that we're about to wrap up a week from Friday.
Wow.
Your thoughts?
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible that they've already thought through what that looks like. It's almost, there were lots of growing pains, not lots, but there were growing pains with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Most notably the third one.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I think there were ideas of having a 4th one before that one came out. So
they announced it in 2009. I was just reading about this today. In 2009, they did announce Spider-Man 4 of the Sam Raimi Sam Raimi series with Tobey Maguire was supposed to come out in 2011.
Yeah.
And that was right before Marvel was acquired by Disney, and then they decided to go in 2012 with a new series with Andrew Garfield. So
Right.
Yeah.
Because they said, wow, that went wrong. Let's just get a reboot so no one thinks about Spider-Man 3 so people will come see it. Yeah. I think that it's pretty spectacular to think that they've already mapped that out. That they're like, listen, even if it's just bare bones, right? Spider-Man's going to go to college. He's going to do this. He's going to see this. He's going to fight this person. He's going to learn this. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that they're already ready for that. So I'm down for it. And I think Tom Holland is the perfect person to do it. I don't think you can do that with really any other character in the MCU at this time, because they're all much older in their journey, right? Because Tom Holland is effectively one of the youngest. And maybe we'll have that with the whole, the whole new crew of new Avengers coming in and the New Mutants, all that stuff, possibly. But Tom Holland, he's a magnet for sure. That's awesome.
He is. And the other thing that I'm realizing is he's a pretty suave businessman. So a few episodes ago, we were talking about how he's doing press tour. He's getting all these profiles by GQ and Vanity Fair. He's doing the rounds and talking about all of his Sony projects and talking about his future as an actor. And he's dropping these cryptic notes like, oh, maybe what's best for Spider-Man next is for there to be a Miles Morales movie, or maybe it's best for somebody else to wear the suit, or, I don't want to be an actor forever, whatever. And Sony's like, hey, hold on now. They signed him up for this. And I think he's playing it a little bit for sure. I mean, he's got to leverage play it, though. You and I both know there was never going to be a situation in which this was the last Tom Holland MCU Spider-Man. It just never was going to be. There's just too much money to be had by all parties involved for this to not happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of where it goes, because I think Tom Holland and Zendaya and Jacob Batalon, like, they're all talking about this being sort of the end of these movies. And so it's a question of what happens now. Is there a time jump? Is there, how many more Avengers type crossover movies will Tom Holland appear in? And, what's the gap between this and the next trilogy? Are they going to start working on it now? I mean, there's a lot of questions, but
yeah, which universe is he in each movie, right?
I think he's in both, man. I think he's in both, and that'll be interesting too. That brings its own bag of tricks, but I think Sony sees the vision. They've played their hand remarkably well. I know we give them a lot of crap, mostly because we just would like to feel safe and secure with our little Spidey people, but Sony's done an excellent job, and we should all feel safe and good and happy knowing that they're going to do what's right for Spider-Man. They've done an incredible job so far. and we're going to get more Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which I think is unanimously good news for most people. So it's
Yes,
good.
I'd like to meet the person who's like, I hate Tom Holland as
Oh,
Spider-Man.
they're out there. They're out there. I mean,
No.
these people, they're the trolls from under the bridge. They come out and they're like, Toby was the best Spider-Man, which is fine. If that's your take, that's fine. But like, don't go spew it everywhere all the time, especially when somebody's like, "Ooh, I love Tom Holland," and you're like, "Toby's the best Spider-Man." Like
They tickle you. They're like, I'm gonna get you.
They are the worst.
Answer my riddle about Tom Holland if you
like,
know love
crawl
him so
back
well.
into your hole, please, and go away. All right, moving on. More Spider-Man news, and to be honest, Kirk, this might be a hot take. I'm more excited for this Spider-Man news, which is that we finally have a title and a release window for Into the Spider-Verse 2, which is not called Into the Spider-Verse 2, obviously, because that's very generic. It's going to be called Into the Spider-Verse Across, or it's called Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, parentheses, Part 1, which, unless they do a history of the world situation, would seem to mean that, and there actually is going to be a history of the world Part 2 now, but I mean, the longest joke forever was like history of the world Part 1. But anyway, there will be more Spider-Verse movies. And Kirk, we were kind of kicking this around over the weekend when the news broke, but they had a little like teaser trailer type thing, and effectively it's exactly what they teed up at the end of the last movie. Spider-Man 99 is there. Gwen is calling to Miles Morales from across the multiverse and asking for his assistance. Like, it picks up right where we left off. So what are your thoughts on what you saw and the fact that we're getting a new Into the Spider-Verse movie in October of next year, less than 12 months?
That's really fast. It seems like a long way away, but it's not, because you just think of them having to draw all that animation. I think it's great. I think it's awesome that they are just handing us exactly what we asked for. That movie was so long in the making that, and then just like appeared out of nowhere. It's
Yes.
like, oh, you want a Miles Morales? Boom! Congratulations, it's in your lap. You want this character to do this? You want to open up to the multiverse? Boom! Done. Like, the creators, whoever's in charge of that entire production, is just listening. I think they live, or they are an AI, and they're just putting it all together and kicking it out into the movie.
They are a fan service bot, and they're like, this is what the people want, and they know. I mean, the thing with Spider-Verse is it gets better every time you watch it. It was already close to perfect. It might honestly be the greatest superhero movie of all time, and now they get to build on it. I'm excited to see what freedom they get this time around. It seems like they had tons of creative freedom the first time around. I mean, Christopher Miller, and Phil Lord are the executive producers on this, and they're obviously creative geniuses when it comes to stuff like this. But they've got a new a 3-person directing team on this that is power packed, including Kent Powers, who is involved in Soul. So it's going to be a good time, and I couldn't be more excited. For some reason, I thought this was coming out in 2023. So when I saw October 2022, I was like, come on, man. Like, 10 months goes that fast these days. And so it's not going to be long now. So stoked. And confirmed Oscar Isaac, who played Spider-Man 2099 in the post-credit scene of Spider-Verse, will, somewhat obviously be reprising his role. So
I mean, there's someone who's breaking into every single franchise as well. Oscar Isaac, he's like Star Wars, Spider-Man,
Dune,
whatever he wants. Dune, whatever he wants, he gets.
He's all over the place.
He deserves it.
It's true. All right. So that was the reason why I called part of this episode a very Spidey Christmas, because if you are a Spider-Man fan, even vaguely, if you're even like a casual Spider-Man fan, you have to be absolutely stoked about all the great Spidey content we're getting. And if you happen to own the video game, like I was talking about before, you get the Spidey suits this Friday. So it's a good times will be had by all Spidey fans. So that's good. All right, moving right along. I want to talk about this one because I just found it very interesting. So Adam Mckay, you may not immediately know that name. If you've been, really closely watching films over the last few years, you definitely would recognize it. This is the guy behind Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, The Big Short. He's a producer on Succession. He, wrote and directed Vice. So he's growing in acclaim, and his new film, Don't Look Up, comes out in a couple weeks. It might even be this week. I don't know, dude. My wires are so crossed with all these
Maybe
movie
it's
releases.
tonight.
Yeah, it's probably out right now. But anyway, Adam McKay is the creator behind all that, and his production company with Will Ferrell, Gary Sanchez Productions, sort of went through a split a few years back, and he was recently profiled by Vanity Fair to promote Don't Look Up, his new film that's coming out on Netflix. And he sort of detailed the breakup with Will Ferrell, and I thought this was very interesting. You know, they had this really close business relationship, and then over time, as Adam McKay started to take on these, started to get more award caliber type attention, they started to grow apart. And the last straw, really in Adam's own words, are basically this Lakers show that he's working on. We've talked about it on this podcast before. Will Ferrell really wanted to be cast in that show. He's a huge Lakers fan, big time LA sports fan, and he wanted to be Jerry Buss. And without talking to him, Adam McKay cast Will Ferrell's best friend, John C. Reilly, in that role. And it was actually John C. Reilly who told Will Ferrell that had happened before Adam McKay. And so since that time, Adam McKay says he's written emails to Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell hasn't responded, and it's been a pretty messy breakup. So this to me is significant, but also my read on this is that with Adam McKay being the one saying all this, he's controlling the narrative. But my read on this is that and this is totally speculation, but I think he got too big for his britches with all of these new movies that he did. And when I look at a movie like Vice, and I've loved pretty much everything that Adam McKay has done, but I look at a movie like Vice, which I absolutely hated for a lot of reasons, none of which were political at all,
right,
but most of which were that the movie was not funny at all. Something that Adam McKay actually admits, that he sort of lost his sense of humor while he was making that movie.
Yes.
It was arrogant and cocky and out of control. Basically, all of his best tendencies ratcheted up to the point where, they weren't good anymore. And so the movie turned into a complete mess and obviously got mixed reviews. It still got Academy acclaim, but it was a movie that I really hated watching. And to me, from that point, I was like, I think Adam McKay's lost his way. I think he got a little taste of gold and is like, I can do whatever I want. And that's why I said on this podcast a few weeks ago, I think Don't Look Up is going to be a stinky failure unless he figures out a way through it. But Kirk, what are your thoughts on this whole situation? And I don't know, based on what you're seeing, what's your read?
Yeah, it definitely is. He's got a pretentious side. It's almost like a mood swing. He's like, all right, I'm going to do something fun, and I'm going to use my best talents, and I'm really going to focus on the characters, which is why he was so successful in the first place. And then he does something like Vice, and then maybe Don't Look Up looks like this as well. We'll 3 days, December 10th, it drops very soon. So I think that, Will Ferrell is not shooting for that Oscar. He's shooting to entertain. Mm-hmm. He's shooting for the best movie that highlights him. And that's why they had such a good relationship, because their humor was lined up 1-to-1. Like, they got each other. And so Adam McKay was able to write for him. So it's shocking that Adam McKay didn't also use his right-hand man and say, great, I really want to work on this project, but I'm never going to forget what got me here. What kind of project do you want to do, man? Let's run with it. Let's do both. And He's not doing that. He's putting all of his energy into these very high profile, big money movies. And when's the last time he did an indie movie? I don't know. So their breakup, it's a little sad. Sad.
No, it is sad. I think it is sad, but he, and to his credit, he's saying, I screwed up, this, that, and the other. But all I have to say, my read on the situation was, Will Ferrell is known as a really good guy in the industry. I obviously don't know him personally, but people who do have nothing but good things to say about the guy. If he's not emailing you back, you got to look in the mirror. And it sounds like Adam McKay is doing that, but it's a messy situation. Adam McKay said it himself in the Vanity Fair profile. It is a cliched Hollywood breakup. It's a cliche Hollywood trope that they're going through this friendship that gets broken up by business. And it is sad to see, to your point, but just wanted to chat about that a little bit, because I think it is interesting to sometimes see how things happen in the industry.
Yes, and I think this is a good time to invite Will Ferrell onto our podcast to
Of
tell his
course,
side of the story.
always oblige. We will always oblige Will Ferrell. He can come on at any point. My
So
door is literally
listeners,
open. He can just walk through.
well, that would be incredible.
Will, come on in,
March right
buddy.
in.
I was having coffee with him earlier today, so I'll invite him in. No,
You
twist
guys,
my arm.
you guys were playing Spider-Man together.
We were. That's you know what? That's where I was. Okay, moving right along. Yahya, we love Yahya. Kirk and I,
Yeah.
we love Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He's he's Candyman. He was in
Watchmen.
Watchmen. He was incredible in Watchmen. He is on the rise in a big way. So I've got good Yahya news and bad Yahya news. Which one do you want first?
I want. Give me the bad Yaya first.
Okay, so the bad Yahya is that he is exiting Furiosa, which is the Mad Max Fury Road prequel. That cast was too good to be true. We knew it, Kirk. We knew it. It's
Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy. It's Chris Hemsworth. It was Yahya Abdul-Mateen. But due to scheduling conflicts, he is exiting that project, which is a major bummer. Major bummer.
Man.
But on
What's
the good news side,
Yes,
Yahya Abdul-Mateen has spun up his own production company. He's calling it House 1110, and he has a creative partnership in place with Netflix to create and star in some projects for them.
That's
for
fantastic.
Netflix. So he has been in so many great projects, and he brings so much talent to the table that, like, as a producer, I have the utmost confidence in his creative eye to know which projects are the right way to go and if he's going to be starring in them, then sign me up. I'm stoked for it.
It's really cool to see when, excuse me, recording late hurts. when when an actor transforms into the producer role as well, because first of all, you're like, holy crap, now they're really going to be making money, because as an actor you make lots of money, but as a producer you make lots and lots of money.
Yes.
So it's really cool. And just like you said, obviously you can't become a producer and know what you want to create for an audience unless you know how to tap into that psyche. And as an actor, I feel like actors are some of the best producers, because they are the epitome of personifying emotions, right? So then,
Yep.
and giving us tales that we crave for, ones that we've heard before, and more importantly, ones that we haven't. So it's so cool to see when that happens. And you're exactly right. This is such an easy transition for him that makes so much sense.
Yeah, and I think, to me, actors are closer to fans than most career producers are.
Yeah.
Like, actors go and they watch a ton of stuff because they're students of the craft. And so they watch a ton of stuff, and so they become fans of things. We hear them talk about all the time what they're watching, what they like, etc. So in a lot of ways, producers these days, it's like anything. Everything's becoming more analytical. And so they tend to, when they're thinking of projects that might be financially profitable, they tend to use analytics to make those decisions. Oh, what kinds of things have performed well? What kinds of people do people like to see? But an actor will have more of a fan lens going into it, and they'll say, I wouldn't watch that. I would watch that. And they might have a little bit more of an artful approach rather than a science and numbers approach to selecting projects. So,
right. Example, Red Notice, producer, career producer minded.
Yeah.
Tom Holland new trilogy, fan and story
Yes.
influenced.
Oh man, Red Notice. We didn't even talk about that yet. Guys. Listen, I hated it. Okay? I'm not going to say it's bad because that's subjective, but I hated it and didn't make it through it. I just didn't. And Kirk and I both, we were like, we can't talk about Red Notice because we both did not like it. But
I hated it so much that I forgot that I watched the whole thing, and then and then Cam was like talking about it. I was like, oh yeah, I do. I suppressed it.
It was like a bad dream. Yeah. You put it away. It was a defense
bubbling
mechanism.
up like acid reflux.
But if you did like it, I'm so happy because it was on Netflix and it was free and it was, probably a lot of fun, and that's great. Wasn't for me. So we'll just leave it at that. Next up, some casting news, some really fun casting news. So Universal, they have their Monsterverse. Right. That's what they're calling it. They have the rights to all these old monster movies, The Invisible Man, Wolfman,
Yep.
Frankenstein, Dracula, et cetera, et cetera. It goes on.
Mhm.
And they are spinning up a bunch of different monster movies. And one of the ones that they're working on, I think this is a really interesting concept. Chris Mckay is directing one called Renfield, which is about Dracula's trusty sidekick, Renfield. And in this case, Nicholas Hoult is playing Renfield. He's been in a ton of stuff. X-Men First Class, I think most notably for most people. And they just cast Nicolas Cage as Dracula in that series, which at first I was like, that's weird. But then I looked at it and I was like, you know what? He might actually make a really good Dracula.
Yes, he will.
What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, there's the classic Nick Cage gif of him with the vampire teeth.
Yeah, good call. I forgot about that.
You know, and it's just gonna be great. I mean, there's nothing that Nicolas Cage can do that I hate. There really isn't, because he's just going for quantity over quality.
Yes.
And then he strikes gold every now and then. More recently, he's been hitting gold. You know,
Yes.
with Pig. I think with I almost said Willy Wonka's Wonderland, but I think it's Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah.
And then the one the movie coming up, I think early next year, where he plays himself. I mean,
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's on just like a streak right now. That's just you got to stand out of the way and just watch
Yeah.
it. So him
When
as
you're
Dracula,
hot, you're hot.
yeah, him as Dracula. Let's go. I'm so pumped. Nicholas Hoult though, nah, not a fan.
You're not a fan? I think it's too early to tell on Nicholas Hoult. I think he's made some bad choices.
Yeah.
But I think he has potential to bring it. So we'll see. I'm definitely intrigued by this movie though. I think just in general. Actually, the MonsterVerse stuff in general is becoming more and more enticing. I mean, they've got Ryan Gosling playing the Wolfman in an upcoming movie, and The Invisible Man, we talked about it on the podcast. I thought that was a pretty good monster movie overall, especially like how they modernized it. I really liked what Blumhouse did with it. So I'm not going to say I'm on board with the MonsterVerse stuff, but I'm getting there. I'm getting closer to being on board with it. So this is another move the needle in that direction. Next up, we've talked Tom Holland. We've talked Sony. We know, listen, Tom Holland is Sony's golden boy. They're like, listen, you're the golden goose. We're just if we'll throw money at you and you make gold out of it. And he's like, so far he's doing it. But you know, outside of Spider-Man, they've got him doing Uncharted. We've seen trailers for that coming out. That's a movie being adapted out of a video game. And the latest news, and this is exciting, Kirk, is that Tom Holland has signed on to play Fred Astaire in a new Sony biopic. So that news coming from the Associated Press. Now, on paper, this is a match made in heaven, because Tom Holland is very, he's like a gymnast. He's highly athletic, and so that probably translates pretty well to some dancing ability, if he doesn't already have that built in to his toolkit already. But what do you think of this casting and this upcoming movie? Are you excited about it?
I am. We have the infamous umbrella dance scene from the lip syncing show.
Yes, of course. Yeah, the one where
Right?
you and Zendaya were on there.
That's right, where he busts out and he's in like a women's corset and there's rain falling on him. It's super cool. So we obviously know that definitely translates, like you say, gymnastics to dance. He was, I believe, was he also a Billy Elliot? Can't remember. Either way, Tom Holland is just going to be so great. He's so dapper. He just gets it. He studies, and he really is transformative in his roles. One thing that we didn't review on our podcast was a movie on Apple TV Plus, because it was in Apple TV Plus's infancy, a movie called Cherry. If you missed it, I highly recommend going out and watching it, everyone, because wow, that is something, a version of Tom Holland you have not seen before, and he is exquisite in it.
Yeah, I think he's so much like, the reason that he's Spider-Man is because he's so gifted. It's not the other way around. It's not like he got the Spider-Man gig and now it's like everybody knows him and he's popular for no reason. Like, no, he has been good. He has been good for so long.
Yeah.
And we did the film, what was that movie called? The Devil All the Time, the Netflix movie.
Yeah.
We reviewed that on here, and he was in that, and he was was fantastic. And, he's been in a lot of good stuff, really good roles. Cherry, another feather in his cap. So I'm excited about this just for him to get to show who he is outside of Peter Parker. Though, I love the Peter Parker stuff. I think it's good for him to stay busy and keep cranking stuff out. It'll be exciting. It'll be exciting to watch. So
yes.
Sony, man, they get it. They like working with him. He likes working with them, and it's been a very, very fruitful relationship thus far. All right, that's all I got for news, but let's talk about some stuff that's coming out this week. Kirk, you mentioned it on Netflix this Friday, the Adam McKay film. Don't Look Up. Check it out. See if I'm right, that it's another messy production like Vice, or maybe it's tightened up. Huge star-studded cast that runs the gamut. I mean, Leo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Jonah Hill, Meryl Streep, Ariana Grande. I mean, there's all these crazy names. Like, that cast is hard to wrap your head around. So that'll be a fun one to check out. I think basic premise there is there's a meteor coming towards the earth, and they're, like Leo and J-Law are trying to warn people of it. So it should be interesting. Mm-hmm. Another one, Steven Spielberg's West Side Story hits theaters this Friday. And let me tell you, I'm trying to avoid as much as I possibly can, but the buzz is loud. The buzz is real loud. And Steven Spielberg is obviously one of the greats of all time, but I think of late he hasn't had a project that's really like, he's always been good, but he hasn't had a project lately that's really popped. And if he knocks this out of the park, it will pop, because the show itself is so great. With Stephen Sondheim having just passed away, this is the moment for this movie to make a comeback. And Rachel Zegler is new on the scene, and people are saying she could get nominated. There's just, the buzz is loud. It's really loud. Mm-hmm. So as much as I'm trying to avoid, that's definitely a must see this weekend if you head to the theaters. And then Hawkeye episode 4 already. I can't believe they gave us a double episode in week 1. They're trying to get through this one quick, but episode 4 of 6 drops tomorrow. So if you're listening to this in podcast form, it's already out. And Kirk and I will probably be watching it tonight, if I had to guess.
That's right. And 2:00 it drops.
Nice. Yeah. By the way, we're back with Spilled Popcorn. So if you've been liking that, the MCU series recaps and analysis that we do, we dive deep into the weeds. We talk about the comic book history. We speculate like crazy what's to come next. And frankly, we've had a decent hit rate on our speculation. I think so. Sometimes we're a little too crazy. We get a little out of control, but we've done really well. With Loki, we did great. With Loki, we were like lining them up and knocking them down, speculating it. Mm-hmm. So we've already done the first 2 episodes. The 3rd episode is dropping today if you're listening in podcast form, and they're all going to be on YouTube as well. So with some fun clips from the show and editing and stuff like that. So pick your poison. Spilled Popcorn is back. We're stoked to be doing it, and Hawkeye's been really, really fun so far. So make sure you listen in if you're watching the show.
Please, it's how we're going to get monetized. Please.
We're not going to beg, but please. Kirk's literally begging right now. Okay. Let's pop it up one last time, and let's jump into our movie review, Kirk, if you're ready for it.
Ready.
All right. One sec. I'm going to pull this up real quick. We're jumping into our review of Netflix's. Netflix, they get in on the award stuff. They find these little projects that are, award buzzy, and they latch onto them. They did it with Marriage Story. They did it with Roma. They've done it with a few. And this year they've got The Power of the Dog, as well as a couple of other films coming their way that are getting some award buzz. But today, the one that we're actually talking about is The Power of the Dog. So I am on Synopsis because Kirk did the King Richard synopsis. Make sure you go back and listen to that review if you haven't checked that one out. And it's about to leave HBO Max if it hasn't already. So go see it. Go watch the movie and then listen to the review. But today we're talking about The Power of the Dog, and I am going to synopsis. So here we go. This movie's a trip. Basically, what we've got is 2 brothers who have inherited a ranching gig from their family. They've inherited a ranch and a bunch of livestock and some cow hands. And the 2 brothers are Phil and then I can't even remember the other guy. They just always call him Mr. Burbank.
Benedict. His name is Benedict.
No, it's not. Phil is played by Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, that's right.
It'll come to me. But anyway, Phil is
Todd.
sort of Todd. No, it's played by Jesse Plemons. But we've got Benedict Cumberbatch and Jesse Plemons. They're running this ranching business. As they're going through the business, the brother, played by Jesse Plemons, meets Kirsten Dunst. They get married. They, kind of do this business together. And she has a son from her previous marriage. She's a widow. And Phil sort of starts to take that son underneath his wing to kind of teach him how to be what in his mind is like a proper man, a ranch man, teach him how to do all of those things. And so there's all these, on the surface, it's a very basic story. It's like two brothers, guy meets girl, the other brother doesn't like the girl, the other, Phil has issues with the boy, but then decides to take him under his wing. It's pretty simple, but there's all these character dynamics and these different stories. And it's one of these things where each of these four main characters in this movie has a very specific perspective on everything that's happening around them. And they turn into these competing forces. And so then it's just a matter of kind of who ends up in the most advantageous position. In the end, what ends up happening is, so Phil is rude to the son, Peter. He, like the Kirsten Dunst's son, Peter, he's rude to him at the beginning because he thinks he's like not a man. He's got a lisp. He's a little bit, he's not what you would consider a man's man, whatever that is. But, he doesn't like doing manual labor. He's not a ranch hand. He's not anything like that. And so he picks at him and makes fun of him, and they have this really tenuous relationship. But then over time, he decides, I'm going to take this guy under my wing, just like my mentor, Bronco Henry, took me under his wing, and I'm going to formulate this relationship. Well, as it turns out, old Peter didn't forget about that whole situation, and it ends with a revelation in which Phil dies, and it appears that Peter was responsible for Phil's death by subjecting him to anthrax poisoning. So it is a wild finish, a wild ride, lots of different character dynamics going into it. A lot of that probably didn't make sense unless you've watched the movie, but here we are, Power of the Dog. Kirk, did I miss anything? I'm sure I did.
Not really, because this is a slow one. This is a slow one with
it's a slow burn. Yeah,
there's enough dialogue, but man, does the story get told with just being in the same place as one another or not? Yeah, Peter absolutely offed Benedict Cumberbatch.
It's one of those
savage
movies.
Way.
Yeah, it's a slow burn, but it builds to this ending where at the end you realize what's happened, and you realize that, by the way, George is the name of the other brother that's played by Jesse Plemons. I've just remembered that. But you get to the point where Phil dies, and you're like, that's weird. I wonder what's going on in this movie. And then you see the smile on Peter's face, and you're like, oh snap, he killed him. And then you put all the pieces together, and you're like, it's like one of those mind explosion moments where all the pieces were there the whole time, and you just didn't really pay any attention to them because they seemed insignificant, but they weren't. So It is very interesting. But let's dive into it because, like we said, it's getting a ton of award buzz. We're going to talk about who the best actors in this movie are, if they're award caliber performances, and then we're going to talk about the movie itself. So let's get into it. I'm going to kick us off, and I'm going to start with my best actor, which goes to the guy in the picture sitting next to my head, and that's Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays Phil. Phil, man, what a character, and what a character study performed by Benedict Cumberbatch, who is one of the best in the biz right now. He can do so much, but what I loved about Phil is, to Kirk's point earlier, this movie is not particularly dialogue heavy. So every line that is delivered has to accomplish something. That's one of the things about this movie is like there's no waste. There's no filler. Everything that happens for a reason. Every line that's delivered has to be delivered in a very intentional way to get the point across and to deepen the character study, deepen the character analysis, and make it effective. And nobody in this cast did a better job than Benedict Cumberbatch. He was sort of, for all intents and purposes, the main character of this group of four. And he has this very bombastic personality. There's so many things going on with this character. Like, he's incredibly intelligent. They said he went to Yale and graduated with honors and things like that. But now he's this ranch hand. He's inherited this ranch from his parents, and he's really into the cowboy life. He had this mentor, Bronco Henry, who's passed away, and they had sort of a, you know, like an old Greek type of relationship, if you catch my drift. Like there was a romantic relationship built into their mentor relationship as well. And he's got all of these things going on, and it just leads to a really in-depth character study who, in the end, he meets his demise, but he builds it up to this really perfect, well-rounded character. With every line he delivers, you can tell what the subtext is. You can tell how he's feeling. He's a character who is incredibly intelligent and wants to exert his authority over others, but also wants to show that he's good at doing the stuff that other people can do. Like, oh, I'm super smart and I could have just done the business side of the ranch thing, but I'm going to actually learn how to do the ranch side of things. And so with every line, with every facial expression and physical notion, Benedict Cumberbatch is building this character in such a rich way with such little dialogue. So it's impressive. And there's a reason that he's getting Oscar buzz. I think he might be my front runner right now based on what I've seen, even over Will Smith in King Richard, because I really thought this performance was a masterclass and Benedict Cumberbatch was on fire. So that's my pick. Benedict Cumberbatch as Phil Burbank.
Yeah, Benedict really brings it. He does a very good job of letting us know that he's grappling with his identity. He of asserting power, of manipulating people, but not like outright. It's very crafty in how he does it. It could have been very easy for him to just say, "Where are my hides at?" And instead of figuring out, "Oh, I know exactly what's going on. Where is she?" He's talking about Kirsten Dunst when she sells off the hides that he was going to keep and then burn instead of give away for someone to use. So it's very fascinating, all the little pieces he puts together, because he's always crafting, he's always watching, because he feels like everyone one day might unveil his secret, so he has to figure out other people first, and it's just really great. Wonderful job, Benedict.
Alrighty, Kirk. What's your pick?
My pick is Miss Kirsten Dunst.
Nice.
Bring it on. Bring it on. Toro Shore #1, Kirsten Dunst. I mean, come on. When's the last time you saw a movie with Kirsten Dunst and you were just like, wow, that was awesome? I mean, for me, it's Spider-Man. For me, it was Bring It On. It's from her glory days, right? And she's done lots of different work in between there and now. One of the biggest pieces that kind of brought her back into the realm of consideration as a serious actor was this movie called was it Melancholia, where it was a kind of the surreal movie where the world was ending and like a planet was colliding. And this right here is what we needed from Kirsten Dunst. This was absolutely impressive work. With her character, the mother, she befriends first Mr. Jesse Plemons, who is her real life spouse, or at least partner in life. They have 2 sons together. And then they become married out of the blue. They meet for a little bit, and then they get married on a random Sunday, which is par for the course for when you're in 1925, 1908, whatever the year is. There's not a lot of options, because especially when you're in the desert, kind of like in this particular case. But what she does and how she's affected and her full arc is so wonderful. She comes in as this broken woman, but hopeful. She's a widow. She has her son with her. She runs this little restaurant for ranchers that come in to help support their little town, their little piece of paradise. And when Benedict comes in and realizes that his life is being threatened, his secrets are being threatened because another person is coming into. He had a good thing with just him and his brother and running their team of people. Their house is giant, but Kirsten Dunst comes in and is not a threat, but he sees her as one. And so he starts to little by little just tear her down and tear her down and tear her down. And we see the joy sucked from her life. She begins to cope in bad ways, but she doesn't know what to do. She's isolated. Her life is flipped, turned upside down. And seeing her go from this joyous person to still trying to hold on to that sanity and become this alcoholic and sink deeper and deeper into just depression, but still like trying to climb out with her son. Her son Peter comes in and she's like, "Oh my goodness, Peter, I'm so glad to have you. Like life is great, isn't it?" And she's lying through her teeth, and it is just so amazing what she has crafted in this movie. I never thought I'd see ever a performance like that from Kirsten Dunst. She wins the Oscar. I really, really hope she gets a Best Supporting nod from the Academy because it was really quite wonderful.
It's a great pick, Kirk. It's a great pick. I love Kirsten Dunst's performance. My only thing was I wanted so much more. You know, it is a great supporting performance, but it was like that character had so much, and I just was like, I wanted more. I don't know what like got cut from the film, but she was so great, and it was so great to see her on screen doing her thing, acting at a level that we all know that she's very capable of. And again, you know, the crux of this story is these four characters, and it gives you a chance to do these really deep, really detailed character studies. And she, like Benedict Cumberbatch, and really like each of our four leads, smashed it out of the park. All right, moving on to Scene Stealer. I have to go with Cody Smith-McPhee, who played Peter Gordon. I thought this performance, out of the four, well, didn't have the highest level of difficulty, but was the most crucial to the effect of the film, because at each point, really with all of these characters, you have to try to read what's going on in their head. And the subtext that's going on with them is just, it's direct, but it's just ambiguous enough to that at any point you're like, oh, you know, using Kirsten Dunst's character as an example, like, oh, Mrs. Gordon Rose, you know, she loves George. Oh, wait, she's in it for the money. Oh, wait, no, she does love him. Oh, no, wait, she's in it for the money. And there's all this going on in the background until you kind of like start to figure it out. But with Cody, his whole thing is that he has to balance leaving it open-ended enough to where we can both believe that he is cool with Phil even after their earlier spats, but also believe that he was playing him the whole time when the reveal happens at the end and it turns out that he was actually responsible for his death, which is not explicitly stated. It's just highly hinted at by the finale of the film. And so he has to keep that open-ended enough to where the whole time we're like buying it. Oh, he's okay with Phil now. He's, you know, put it behind him, and he really wants to learn about being a ranch hand. He's kind of into this whole mentor relationship and this lifestyle and things like that. But then to also at the end go, oh no, wait, he was never into it. He was playing him. This was all the long game. He wanted him dead the whole time, and he wanted to, as he said, his character at the very beginning of the movie, just him talking. Yeah, for what kind of man would I be if I didn't protect my mother? He had to fulfill that mission, and that was his plan from the very beginning. And to balance that and to deliver a performance that keeps the audience engaged the whole time, but then at the end also, you know, you've left enough clues for them to put the puzzle pieces together is really well done. It's perfect, and it is the most crucial part by far of the effectiveness of this story. It has to be nailed in order for the story to work, and he nailed it. He really did. And he could very well be lined up for an Oscar nom on his own. Like, this whole cast is going to be fighting for it, to be honest, in my opinion. So really good job. Cody Smith-McPhee.
Yep. I mean, I'm sorry. Todd Plemons wasn't great
Jesse
enough.
Plemons.
Yep. Todd, of course, is his evil, horrifying character from Breaking Bad that haunted our dreams, still does. Because he's one of the most evil characters ever written into television history. So I think that Todd Plemons dropped the ball a little bit. That was
Jesse Plemons.
Dang it, Jesse Plemons was just a little, not enough for me. Not enough for me. And let's talk real quick, real snippet. I mean, when they started calling each other brother, I felt more of like, you're my brother, you know, Rick Grimes, Daryl Dixon, you're my brother. You know, that's what I thought they were. And then it was like, oh no, they're like real, like blood brothers here. I just didn't buy it. I know it's written in there, but I didn't feel that. How about you?
Well, his character is exceptionally dumb. I think that's part of the point. So like, I think at times when it feels like there's not much, this is my interpretation. At
Mhm.
times when it feels like there's not much expression coming from his character or there's not much thought, it's because there's not. Like his character just really is dumb. I mean, Phil calls him fatso and dummy and calls him all these things throughout the movie. And, he a lot of times doesn't even know what to say. Like Phil's constantly being like, why does it seem like it pains you to, what does he say, to stitch two words together? Or he's like,
Yeah.
come on, open your yapper, let's go. I think he just generally like doesn't know what to say because there's not much going on in his head. But yeah, I think out of the four, he's not the standout by any means. But his character also just didn't have as much to do. But his character still had a story purpose, but it just wasn't at the same level as the others.
It's true. Which is why for my scene stealer, I also picked Cody Smith-McPhee.
Yeah.
He's great. I love how creepy he is. Him like playing around with animals, and he's like, how am I going to learn to be a doctor? I got to figure this out. I've got to study. And he's just like opening up this rabbit that he just caught on his like desk in the house out of nowhere. It's like super creepy stuff. If you ever seen the movie The Lobster, the killing of a sacred deer, we get those vibes of a troubled child, but those are like really like kids in those sense. Even like if you've seen Ozark, the little boy goes through a phase where he's like super creepy and you're like, get away from me, get some Pet Cemetery vibes, right? So but he's older, like he's an adult, he's like a young adult, but he really does play this carefree at the beginning of it. His arc is fantastic. He's carefree, he's just helping his mom out, just going through life, goes away, comes back, is trying to do right by everyone, is able to befriend Phil, and able to kind of get in his head. And man, he's just a mastermind. He's an absolute mastermind. The writing of that is so good, but it wouldn't have been possible without him choosing so specifically on how he would also manipulate the master manipulator Phil. And those kinds of choices are super important, and he did such a good job there. And at the end of it, I mean, he was torn down by being judged by Phil in front of this group of men who when you have such a small world, that is your whole world. So if you're getting ridiculed by just like these 10 guys who are all ranchers, you just think like, this is who I am now, and this is my entire life. And then maybe he could have lived with that, but as soon as his mom started going downhill, he's like, nah, you made a big mistake. And then he cooked up the anthrax and killed Benedict Cumberbatch. So bravo, Cody Smith-McPhee.
Yeah, man. What a performance. What a wild ride with that character. I totally agree with all you have to say there. Let's jump into Showstopper. Let's talk about this production a bit. For me, and I don't know if this is annoying, you guys can tell me later, or you can tell me in the chat right now if you're on the stream, but I don't have a specific showstopper so much as I just really like the sum of all the parts of this movie. So like it's a screenplay. Jane Campion, the director, adapted the screenplay from a book, and this whole thing sort of plays out, in my opinion, sort of like a one-act play where you've got four characters. They've all got their different motives. You're learning all of their stories from their perspective, but you're also learning the collective story. But the whole production on the whole comes together in a really tight, consistent way. The Johnny Greenwood score, Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, one of my favorites of all time and one of the most genius musicians on the planet. He conducted the score for this. He also conducted the score for Phantom Thread, if you guys saw that, with Daniel Day-Lewis. He also conducted the score for Spencer, the movie that's out right now with Kristen Stewart playing Princess Diana. Really solid score. Really great cinematography and production design. The lighting, the shots, the natural textures, really beautiful. The dialogue was minimalist dialogue, but intentional. This whole thing was rife with intentionality. Just everything we're doing has to be for a reason. There can be no wasted frames. There can be no wasted moments. Everything has to come together at the end, and you have to be able to go, this is why that was in there. And so the way that all comes together really is my showstopper. This, like, each part on its own, you look at it and you go, it's impressive. But when it's all together, it's like, wow, this is a really beautiful piece of cinema. I think that really, It was just very cinematic in nature too, with the shots that they were doing. They were not, they weren't lazy with the shot choices. They were being detailed in who was in focus, out of focus, where the lighting was. It was just really well pieced together. And so the sum of all those parts is my showstopper. I just think it's really tight production all around.
Very
Kirk.
good. Very good. My showstopper comes down to cinematography. This has a little bit of a Chloe Zhao feel for it because of the beautiful sweeping landscapes, because they're out in the middle of nowhere. You see you see the dog, right? Basically the mountain range right there. That's the dog with his jaw wide open right there, ready for the take. Means a lot more right now because it's literally about to snap him and kill him. So I love it. I love it. The sweeping landscapes that they do, it doesn't make sense how beautiful they are whether they're just like randomly driving to the new city that they're going to, whether they're driving back from Sunday, right? Todd, Jesse Plemons, and Kirsten Dunst Rose. So there's not a lot of them though too. So like when I say Chloe Zhao and I think of Nomadland, it's like most of that were these just beautiful widescreen epic shots from like 100 yards away that just were framed perfectly. In this one, there's only about 5 or 6, but they're so memorable and like Cameron said, they're so intentional that they just capture you and you're like, why am I looking at this and why am I looking at this now? This would be a great film to watch back a second time and to like mark, okay, what just happened? Why am I seeing these 5 or 6 frames and what's about to happen? Because that alone is going to tell us where we're going. Either what happened before, it's either going to dictate exactly what happened in the scene before if it was ambiguous, or exactly what's happening next. And I bet you the crumbs are louder than we thought with Peter and his secret plan to kill Phil throughout all of this. So those moments, those big moments, the dog specifically, that's the only one that's actually called out, but there are these other ones where there's like lanterns kind of in the distance. You can see the little houses on the hillsides, and it's really, really beautiful to watch. And I'm gonna have to watch it again now. I just convinced myself.
Yeah, so I did watch it twice, and actually that would be my recommendation to everybody. Like you're saying, Kirk, watch it twice, because the second time around, once you know how the story comes together, there's just so much more to get out of it. There's a ton with lighting with Phil's character of like, they tell you with the lighting when he's putting up the facade and when he's his real genuine self, whether he's sort of shaded, incomplete darkness, incomplete light, etc. Really smart stuff. Tons of little crumb trail for us to follow to get to that point. But it's just crafty enough to where I just don't think, I don't know, maybe you're a super genius and you get there the first time. Like I did not pick it up the first time. I think it's crafted in a way that you're not really supposed to get it the first time, but that when you do, you're like, oh snap. I think that's the effect that they're really going for. But yeah, and on the cinematography that you're talking about specifically, here's something really cool about this one that I like. You see these movies that are in these like, this takes place in 1925 in the middle of godforsaken nowhere's land, where people are doing cattle drives and stuff like that. And so what you expect is just brown, more brown, similar to what you see in the picture here if you're watching on the stream. Well, they are in that setting most of the time, but the way that they differentiate it with colors is by using the natural light. Sunrise, midday, sunset, evening. Like there's all these different natural colors that come into play whenever you just let the sun do its thing. And they did that in a way to really differentiate the tone and or not the tone, but like the texture of the film and the colors that were at play. And it was really, really smart for all the reasons that you said in your showstopper, Kirk. Let's move into director's shoes. Let's talk about the other side. For me, it is the fact that the effect comes at the very end of the movie. It is a really satisfying payoff, but there's a moment when you're close to the end of the movie and there hasn't been resolution and there hasn't even really been a build or massive conflict or anything like that. There's just been a few events like Phil dying is just like One scene he's sick. Let's get him to the doctor. Next scene, George is looking at coffins, so they don't really give you much time to like feel the conflict of like, oh, this person's dying or whatever. Like there's a few screaming matches and stuff like that, but the conflict is pretty low. So like the emotional dynamic stays, kind of like a little pulse line throughout. It's like it's mostly flat. And then at the end it goes because you've just gotten this massive effect of like, oh my gosh, what just happened? But because of that, you're 10, 15 minutes away from the end of the movie and you're like, all right, what did I just watch? Like they're wrapping this up. Nothing super climactic is going to happen. And of course it does in literally the last 3 frames of the movie. But before that, you are left in this position of like, what did I miss? What was the point? And it just kind of leaves you in this narrative limbo where you're like, I don't know how to feel about this. And of course it all comes together at the end. But for that period of time, it's like a really uncomfortable, frustrating watching experience because most films really do have like a, start flat, build, climax, resolve. And this movie has none of that. It's just flat, bang, no resolve, you're out. And so that is just a different experience overall. And while the effect is really good, the bit before it is uncomfy, in my opinion. So that's my director's shoes.
Excellent point. So excellent that it's also mine.
Nice.
One of mine. You don't have enough to, I don't know, care about all the characters enough in this movie. There's not a really strong catharsis by the end of this because you didn't go through life much with them. I think that's why I connected with Kirsten Dunst so easily because I'm like, dang, look at what's going on with her. Like check her out. Like life is up and down, and she's the one, right? And you see the other ones who are a dumb and oblivious Jesse Plemons, and you have the one who is the monster, Phil, Benedict Cumberbatch, and you have in the background just trying to figure life out, Phil, right? I'm sorry, Jody,
Peter.
so who plays Peter. So we have all of these things that really are not accumulating fast enough for me when I watch this movie. Not that I'm opposed to slow movies. There's tons of slow movies that I'm sure would, slow-paced movies, I should say, that would bore people to tears, that are some of my absolute favorites, where they are just captivating in a different way. And I have to say also that I don't feel like the ranchers were fully utilized correctly, because we know they're ranchers. We know they're not killing animals, but they're taking care of animals until they don't need to anymore. Then there's the side hustle with with the Native Americans, where there's this conflict there, but it's not really extrapolated on. There's like all these other kind of random things thrown in that really weren't important enough. And that, though, in my opinion, and in those moments of fluff, even though they were brief, it was like, well, how does that specific moment play into the psyche and the growth, or what we need to see in Phil's level of control, right? It helped motivate of his destruction and Kirsten Dunst's ultimate fall, but it really could have been done in any other way. Maybe it's back to the music, back to the piano and the banjo. There were other ways, in my opinion. Again, because I'm an Academy Award winning director, I feel like I can say that. And what I wanted out of this film was more clarity, because sometimes when you make films like this, you rely a little bit too much on the empty space. And these films are already not for me, because I kind of hate this era of 1920, and not enough to do. There's a movie I recently watched, also came out on Netflix, The Dig, with Ray Fiennes and Carey Mulligan and Lily James, and I was like, it's a good story, but I hate that genre. Like, I hate that time period. So I'm a little jaded just because I'm not interested, but I also feel like there's a way to capture me, and I wasn't quite there with this one.
Yeah. Good points all around. And I think it's going to be interesting to sort of wrap it up. So final thoughts and scores. I'm going to go ahead and go. Here's the thing. Normally I will criticize a movie if the effect the first time around is not good enough. but the effect the second time around is like, oh, it all makes sense. This time I'm not going to, because I watched it the second time and had such a much more enhanced viewing experience, picking up all the things that I thought were filler were actually not. I mean, good example of that is there's a part where Benedict Cumberbatch's character is talking to all the ranch hands, and he's like, we need to go out, we need to do all these things, and we need to get the Native Americans off the land, and we can't be dealing with anybody trying to buy stuff from us. We don't sell stuff here, so we're not selling hides, we're not selling anything like that. And then later in the movie, 2 Native Americans roll through and they want to buy the hides, and Kirsten Dunst, filled with rage against Phil, is like, oh, you can buy those hides, you can buy those hides. And that's what sends the death spiral that ends up, the hides are gone. Oh, wait, Peter's got these hides. They're poisoned with anthrax. He works on them without gloves. He's got the cut on his hand. Like, the pieces fit together so incredibly well. And the second time, you're the Leonardo DiCaprio meme from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood the whole time, pointing at the screen with your cigarette in your hand. You're like, oh, that's this, that's that. And so the second time through, you realize there just really isn't a ton of filler, and it's such a much more enjoyable watching experience. So the only thing I will really ding it for is that first time through watching it, you go, oh, I don't know. Like, I get the effect. It's powerful. It's cool at the end. But then, like, the rest of that stuff, what was the point of that? But the second time through, it really starts to come into focus. And I just think that from the score, all the stuff I talked about in my showstopper, the score, the cinematography, the production design, the acting, the dialogue, everything is pulled together in such a intentional way. It's really, really a detail-oriented piece of art, which is something that a lot of times you just see details sort of fall to the wayside. Maybe they get lost in the edit. Maybe they get lost somewhere along in the production process. But, this stuff all held together. And maybe that's because it's partially adapted from a book. It probably would have been much more impressive to me if it was an original screenplay, because I'm sure the book laid the framework for a lot of this stuff. But as a film, it ends up having a really effective finale, and it has really high rewatchability, which a lot of these things don't, because you can rewatch this and pick up different things and, really get into, you could watch it 4 different times and just focus on one of the 4 characters and figure out everything that they're going through, and what their motives are, etc. And you get a totally different viewing experience. And so for once, I actually think that having to watch the movie multiple times to appreciate it is a benefit. And I can't remember the last time I was really in that camp, but for this one I am. So for me, oh man, I've been waffling on a score. It's high, but I don't know how high. I think I'm going to go 9.0. I'm going to put it in the 9s, just barely in the 9s. It's good. It's put together. I think it's the kind of movie that if it wins Best Picture, people will be like, what? That's the best movie of the year. I think it's going to be a really divisive thing, but I think if you're into it and you see what they're going for and you buy into it, it can be really effective. And, to your point, Kirk, if you don't like Westerns or that era, you're not going to like it. If you don't like slow burns, you're not going to like, there are lots of different factors at play that just like will put you out of this movie and sort of take you out of wanting to look for those details and things like that. But for me, I think it all comes together really nicely. And so it's a 9.0 out of 10. It's been a long time since I've given that one of those.
Wow, 9.0. We are going to have very different scores, my friend. Very different.
Let's find out.
Yeah, I love how you said it. Yeah, I don't have the buy-in on this movie. I just don't. I can respect the things that they were doing, but ultimately the way it was crafted is not my cup of tea. I think that it does have an incredible twist, and not just a twist for twist's sake. It really is only there to enhance the storytelling. It is only there to really give us an understanding of where these characters' heads were at. I fully believe that. I don't feel like the writer of this book was like, I'm gonna write something with a twist better than The Sixth Sense. Like, that's not the goal, and that's why it's such a good twist at the end when you see when you see that rope and you see Peter with the gloves on and he slides it under for safekeeping is like, who's next? Come at my mom. I dare you. Right. So I think that all of that said, it's really just not for me. It's really just not for me. I wish it was. And not to it's not fair to compare movies, but in 2021, if we look at this and we look at King Richard with Will Smith, we have both movies are these vehicles for these powerhouses. King Richard, Will Smith, Power of the Dog, or El Poder del Perro, if you want to say the Spanish name, because it's just fun. I've been dying to say that this entire episode. You have Benedict Cumberbatch at the wheel. And in one film, in King Richard, you have this feel-good, inspirational, just kind of biopic. And in The Power of the Dog, you have this study of people and what makes people break, and what are people willing to, how they're showing their cards, and how does it affect not only the people around you, because Phil destroyed people, but he also destroyed himself. All the way down to his death. Is he responsible for his death? Absolutely, because of how he treated people. Is Peter responsible for Phil's death? Absolutely, because he killed Phil. So there's a lot of good stuff here, but all that said, my score can't be up at Cam's level. And brace yourself, Cam. My score is a 5.8 out of 10 kernels.
Wow. So, and that's fine. I'm good with it. I want you to have a different opinion than me. I would be mad if you were close to me. A lot of times I'm like, oh man, me and Kirk's scores were close. People are going to think we're not that different. We're going to think we don't have different tastes. But it's always like movies like this, movies like Nomadland, these movies that are like way more art over narrative type stuff that we tend to differentiate on, and that's good. But like, do you see the technical merit in it? Like,
absolutely.
Is that, yeah, you see the technical merit in it, but then you're just like, well, as an entertainment product, it's not there. And I think that's fair. I think
let's compare it again to like a movie like The Kitchen, which we both absolutely despised. Terrible technical, terrible acting, terrible everything, right? So you get about halfway there with, I mean, it's probably less. You get so far with technical ability, and then there has to be magic, and then there has to be just the story has to come together in a different way, and it didn't get there for me.
Yeah, I think like I'm learning about you, Kirk, and I'm sure you're learning about me too. But I think like you and I will excuse different things. You know, there are things that you excuse that I do not. Like Space Jam is a good example. Like we had different views on that, and there are things that I will excuse that you will not. And it's so interesting, but I love it. That's what makes this fun. Like I said, if this thing wins Best Picture, I don't know if it will, but you will be among the people shaking your fists at the people who made that decision.
I will.
We'll see. To be honest, like I don't think it's my pick for Best Picture right now. To be honest with you, I kind of think the best movie I've seen this year might be Pig, but we'll see. We'll get closer and we'll see more. And West Side Story comes out this weekend, and Don't Look Up comes out this weekend. And
sight unseen, we have not reviewed Belfast, the Kenneth Branagh film, and potentially, autobiography of his life is what it seems like. That's my win. It's because of my Irish heritage, and it just has been getting just rave reviews. I really just want it to win. I need to watch it.
Yeah, you're a Kenneth Branagh guy, so we'll see.
I love him. But
so much. Nightmare Alley, Guillermo, he's going to have something to say. Like it's going to be competitive. It's going to be contentious. So, I don't necessarily see what Gold Derby is saying about this being the front runner for Best Picture. That's not my personal opinion. I wouldn't put it there, but I do think it deserves a seat at the table, and we'll find out what happens. But
what if Gold Derby is like the Farmer's Almanac, like from Back to the Future?
Yeah, they have it all. They
like
have
the
it all
CEO is Marty McFly.
Yeah, they already know what's happening. No, it'll be interesting, and I think it's also interesting. Like this one came out pretty far ahead of a lot of times we see the Oscar Best Picture winner come out in like the January release window for films. So this being, December's not like super early, but it'll be interesting. Does it last? Does the political power carry it? It'll be very interesting, but very different scores from me and Kirk. If you watched The Power of the Dog, let us know your score. Let us know your thoughts. Are you hashtag Team Kirk, hashtag Team Cam, or somewhere way in the in between? Probably somewhere in between, or maybe you're below Kirk, higher than me. Who knows? but that's what makes this fun. So The Power of the Dog. That's our review for this week. Remember, you can watch it on Netflix, even though you just got, if you're listening, you just got every spoiler under the sun on this movie, and it will probably have no effect on you whatsoever when the big twist happens at the end. But here we are. But thank you guys so much for listening. We got a lot of fun and exciting stuff going on right now. We've talked about spilled popcorn. We are going through episode by episode with Hawkeye right now. You can check that out on our podcast. You can check it out on YouTube with all of the videos there, which are a lot of fun to make and pull together. And Kirk and I have a good time with it. We get way into it. Sometimes we are like speculating for 15 minutes and we're like, whoa. We got to pump the brakes. But it's a good time. And also the Christmas movie bracket. I had somebody reach out to me, a listener reach out and say, hey, you guys doing a Christmas movie bracket this year? Cause we did last year. Yes, it is under construction. I've got my hard hat on and I'm reviewing some new entrants from last year. You know, like, does The Happiest Season make it onto the bracket this year? It's a 64 movie bracket. It's got a good mix of classics, new ones. There's a lot there. It'll be out soon and we'll debate it furiously till the ends of the earth to determine what our favorite Christmas film is. So that'll be fun. Keep an eye out for that. And some reviews. I mean, I know we've teased a lot of reviews that haven't ended up happening. I still think some of those will happen, but I think, you know, obviously No Way Home comes out next week. So Kirk and I, we have our tickets. We will be there. Yes. West Side Story comes out this weekend. We're going to try to see that, but we will see what makes the cut for the show and what doesn't. If you have thoughts, as always, reach out. Kirk, you got anything else or should we get him out of here?
I have nothing else except I really want to say the movie in Spanish again because it's so good.
One last time for effect.
El poder del perro.
Love it. Great R roll there, Kirk. Something I've never been able to do. I respect it.
My Spanish name was Raul, so I had to learn it right away.
Beautiful. Just like Bernardo on Coda. Roll the R. If you can't roll the R, don't just call me Mr. V. Don't even try. All right. We'll get you guys out of here. Thank you so much for listening and watching. If you're on the stream, we appreciate your support. We also appreciate the support of our executive producer, Ryan Spriggs, and his band Rhetoric, which you're hearing fade up right now. Take a listen. We will talk to you guys next time.
See you then.